Welcome to episode number 138 of the You, Me, and BTC podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Timothy Baker
and John Stewart.
Holy crap, John, you're back. I don't know, it's been probably 2 or 3 weeks since you've been gone. Is that a song, Since You've Been Gone? Okay, anyway. So what have you been up to, John? You've been busy, working hard? I don't know.
It hasn't really gotten any worse than that, John, so you're pretty much up to speed again.
Yeah. Well, last week, I don't think you even asked me. I probably could have done it last week, but...
Gosh darn it, on a Tuesday? I thought your Tuesdays were no-goes or something.
No, I had 2 Wednesdays in a row that I couldn't do something.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, 2 Wednesdays in a row, but then last week I didn't have anything on Wednesday.
Well, I'll apologize to all of our listeners for taking away John's voice from you for 1 week, that he could have been here.
Well,
I sincerely...
I also could have told you, and I was like, well, if he doesn't ask me, I'm just not going to do it.
True. Well,
I thought about it. I was like expecting you to ask me, and then I was like, well,
yeah,
I'm not going to do it. So.
All right, well, he's here today, and we do have an interesting topic for today. We're going to pretty much go back to some super basics, and I hesitated a little bit to talk about this. It's mainly going to be about inflation and inflation rates over the past couple decades, and I hesitated to talk about this because it seems so obvious, and especially for people in Bitcoin, you know that inflation happens, and you know that it sucks. But I wanted to talk about it anyway because I guess, for me, I just suddenly kind of realized how serious it was. I mean, I knew it was serious, but I didn't realize how serious, and we're going to explain that in a few minutes here. I ran an inflation calculator over a certain time period, and I'll kind of explain what that means for anyone doing financial planning. So we'll get there in just a second. I do want to mention today CryptoGames.net. They've been sponsoring us for a few weeks, and actually I've been working with them for several months. They've done some banner space and stuff on the website, but I have always been pleased with them. It's a Bitcoin casino, an online casino. You have tons of them to choose from. There's crypto casinos popping up day and night, but this is by far one of my favorites, crypto-games.net, and they let you gamble with all kinds of cryptocurrencies, Dash, Doge, Bitcoin, of course, and Litecoin, Feathercoin. There's a whole list of them there. They have the classic dice game, which is what I like to play. They have blackjack and some other stuff. It's literally anything that you could want in a crypto casino. You can find it there. And my favorite part, the part that I've been actually involved in for several months, is the investing in the casino. You can help bankroll the casino, and you can get a fraction of the profits. So if you are not a gambler, and if you want to try to make some profit, I mean, in a way, it's still gambling, because the casino could lose.
If you're a gambler, but you don't really like to do it like that.
Yeah,
like, I'll just use cryptocurrencies and lose my money.
Yeah, well, it's been nice because I just put in the Bitcoin and just let it sit there. And I let it collect some profits over time. And I've had some Bitcoin sitting there for, 5 or 6 months now. And it's given me at least a 20% return. I haven't checked it in a couple weeks, but yeah, 20% over, we'll call it 6 months. That is not bad at all. And sure, I'll take it. It's a fun thing to do, and I do play at the casino from time to time because it's fun. So crypto-games.net if you want to check it out. I love Bitcoin gambling. What can I say? And it's one of my favorites.
I'll give them a little bit of extra time. You guys can tip me later or whatever you want to do. Probably not. But Daniel, when was the last time you were in like a real life casino?
Oh, I went. Oh man. It would have been, 3 or 4 months ago, and I try to avoid slot machines, and even blackjack I try to avoid just because I know the odds are against me. I prefer poker, where the odds are still against me, but, there's a certain element of skill where I can I can say that I can really win. And so I try to avoid slots and blackjack, but we didn't even show up until like 11 or 12 at night. And it was just me and one other friend, and we were wandering around, and we did play some slots. And then finally at the end, I was like, I gotta gamble at least something. We were just doing like penny slots. So I went up to the $10 blackjack table. I put down $20 and I played 2 rounds and lost both times. So, oops.
Yeah, I went 2 weeks ago or a week ago on Friday at like real late because mostly now they just have like in Pittsburgh at least the casino just has like really cheap beer because they're trying to keep people there.
Well, yeah, normally they should have free drinks too if you're gambling.
Yeah, but I wasn't. I can't do that stuff. I was, dude. What I'd say about any Bitcoin gambling site, even like no matter how bad it works, even if there's glitches, you still don't have that like weird menthol smell that everybody smokes in menthol cigarettes and it just seeps into everything. And you're like, I saw a dude at the bar coughing as he was hitting his cigarette, blowing it out, coughing more, and then just continuing to just like cough into his drink. He's trying to drink his whiskey. I'm like, oh my god,
dude! I need to start going there. If they had, I didn't realize that they had cheap drinks at the casino.
Oh yeah,
'cause I wouldn't gamble either. I just go and like.
It's a decent thing for people to watch. At first, I was like, for the first 30 minutes, I was not happy. I was very kind of weirded out by everything. But after that, I kind of settled down and then just started laughing at everything. But yeah, you can gamble or whatever without that extra little added thing of
yeah, there you go.
Human population. Just gamble from your computer.
There you go.
You can do it in your underwear. You can have all the free drinks you want at your house.
Well, not free, but cheap.
Crypto-games.net because menthols smell bad. There you go. All right. So time to talk about...
try to sell me a gold chain too. That is a positive of a physical one though. You don't get people busting your house trying to sell you stuff.
How many times have I told you that we try to keep our plugs short at the beginning?
And you tell me this, and I keep on ignoring it, so that should tell you something.
I really want to tell the story about how we got pulled over on the way home from the casino, but we're already at 8 minutes, so we're moving on to inflation. Remind me at the end. Yeah, so, inflation. Here's how all this got started. You're going to be hearing my voice quite a bit for the first half of this show, because I just did the live read, and I did the introduction at the very beginning, and I'm about to kick off this inflation discussion. So I'm going to be talking quite a bit here, but hopefully I'm going to be able to just let John and Tim take it away at some point. But I do want to start off this inflation discussion because I want to tell the story about how it even came to me. This weekend, I was at Zion National Park in Utah. Now we've talked about this on the show before, how as much as we hate the government, national parks are pretty cool. Isn't that you, John, who's kind of a fan of that idea?
Yeah, I actually just saw something the other day. It was like a tweet or something where somebody said it was an they posted an article about national parks, and they said this is probably one of the best things our government has ever done.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I saw that it was someone say it was the best thing since the Emancipation Proclamation.
All right, that's what it was. We must be talking about the same person.
Yeah. It was a mutual friend on Facebook who tweeted that or whatever, posted that.
Yeah, that's right.
He said, yeah, best thing since the Emancipation Proclamation. And the reason that people were kind of talking about that was because they just had their 100-year anniversary for the National Park Service. And so that's why people were talking about it. And actually, park entry was free this weekend, which I didn't even know. I have an annual pass. And sorry, I know I'm supporting the
Leviathan of the state.
I'm supporting
you're supporting the one thing that's probably not going to kill people.
But John, if you support the park stuff, you then support other money to go to the missiles. You can't be innocent in this system.
Actually, I read another article about how in the middle of Yellowstone, there's like 50 square miles or something that is not under any jurisdiction. So you could commit crimes there, and there's no one lives there, so there would be no jury to try and convict you. So there's a theory that you could get away with murder there. So I don't know. That's another fun thing. But anyway,
that's something
another fun thing.
Another cool thing to do whenever you're high on meth in Utah. What else are they doing?
Escalated really quickly.
What else are they doing in Utah? It's that or Salt Lake City.
Yellowstone is in like Colorado or Wyoming.
Yeah, I was kind of just
both.
going off of what you said before. I'm sorry. I had no idea where it was.
Ah, goodness. So I was in Zion. We did a 4-mile hike up a mountain, and then it was 4 miles back down. And first of all, it was a really... Yeah, we didn't just jump off the top. So, well, actually, I don't know. I will say, as cool as it was, I did get a sense of like, this is kind of pointless because I've been to the Grand Canyon. I've been to Yosemite. I've been to Yellowstone. Just last weekend, I was in Washington State at a park there, a state park. And it was a beautiful view, but it kind of just blended in with all the other canyons and mountains I've seen. So in that way, it actually wasn't that interesting. It was like, well, I've seen a bunch of this before, so I don't know. But anyway, yeah.
You probably
so
shouldn't have an annual pass.
Daniel's like, I don't give a fuck about this stuff
You're
anymore.
probably not the person they made those for.
Well, it was only...
I just wanted to one-time go.
Just visiting a park 3 times would have made it pay off. And if I had to pay this weekend, then it would have paid off. So it doesn't take much to make it pay off, and I do live near a couple parks. So anyway, yes, still get it. We're getting to inflation, guys. I promise. 4 miles up, had a fun time. It was exhausting. Looked at the view, took some 360 pictures or whatever, and we were hiking back down, and the bottom line here, there's really not much connection other than on the way down, we were moving quickly, and I was kind of zoning out and just kind of having a bunch of whatever shower thoughts or something.
What?
Like,
okay.
Yeah, like when you're in the shower and you just kind of zone out and think about totally random stuff. That was happening to me on the way down the mountain because I had already seen everything, and we were walking pretty fast. It took us half as long to get down as it did to get up, which kind of makes sense. But so I started thinking about retirement planning because also over the past week or two, I've been looking, I got an email from my credit card about like the first 6 months of the year and what I've been spending money on, and just a regular update. And I just been in the back of my mind, I've been thinking like, I've been spending a bit more than I would have liked, and I've been saving a bit less than I would have liked. And so that got me on to thinking about retirement. And somewhere in there, inflation came to mind. And I started thinking, well, what is, like, I started running numbers in my head, like, what if I could save $1 million by retirement, by age 65, we'll say? Or what if I could save $2 million? And, I started thinking about all that. Let's say I saved $2 million, and I assumed that I would live on retirement from age 65 to age 85. Okay, then if I wanted to live on $100,000 a year, that would put me for 20 years, I would need $2 million. And, all this stuff is running through my head. And ultimately, what I wanted to find out was, well, what's going to happen with inflation over 40 years? If I assume I work from 25 to 65 and I save $2 million, if everything works out, if I make 10% interest on my money and... Well, if I really made 10% interest, I hopefully would have way more than $2 million by the end of it all. But anyway, let's say everything worked out. I saved $2 million. What would it actually be worth with inflation? Because most people don't think about that. They're just like, I could be a millionaire by the time I retire because of compound interest. How cool is that? And it's true. It's not that hard to become a millionaire over 40 years with a moderate income and a moderate interest rate. But I wanted to know about inflation. So I ran the numbers. Let's say over the last 40 years, of course, I can't predict the future inflation, but over the last 40 years, from 1976 to 2016, if you were able to save, let's say I was born, 40 years earlier, and it was the year 1976, and I was running all this retirement planning and trying to save $2 million. The truth is, all of that money, with inflation calculated, by the time I retired in 2016, it would only be worth that $2 million would only be worth a quarter of the original value. So the chart here, I'm using an inflation calculator from BLS.gov. I'll post a link in the show notes. But the idea is that if I saved $2 million by the time I retired, it would actually only buy me roughly $500,000 worth of goods in 1976. So let's say, and that's not even, wages would be even lower in 1976. But that's really it. That's what I wanted to get out there, is that you could make all this planning and everything could go right. You could live on $100,000 a year from 65 to 85. But when you're doing all that planning, it's actually only going to be worth a quarter of that. It's actually only going to be worth 50 or 500,000. And that means that if you plan to be retired for 20 years, you're actually going to have to live on $25,000 a year, which is pretty darn low. And anyway, so here's the caveat. Everyone in Bitcoin knows about inflation. Everyone hates it. That's one of the reasons that people get into inflation. So in a certain sense, I'm beating a dead horse. But I guess the reason I still wanted to bring it up is because I didn't quite realize just how serious it was. And, there's people that say, oh, the dollar's going to collapse. The dollar's going to collapse. And they've been talking about it for ages. And we've even said on the show, like, oh, they've been talking about it for ages. It probably won't happen soon, but it could happen, stuff like that. But the fact is, it doesn't matter if it doesn't have to catastrophically collapse. They are already devaluing your money a crap ton. All right? Day and night over the course of your life, your money is, if the trend continues the same way, your money is going to be worth a quarter of what you expect. And that sucks, right? I mean, if Bitcoin went from, say, 600 to 150 tomorrow, and it'd be all over the news. There'd be tons more Bitcoin obituaries, and we wouldn't worry too much because that's happened before and we expect it to come right back. But if it stayed at a quarter of its value for several months or several weeks, it would pretty much be pronounced dead, especially for several years, and especially if it continued in that downtrend. But that's what happens with the dollar over the course of your working life. It's lost 75% of its value. So there we go.
Yeah,
I got that out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's the whole difference, is it's the frog in the pot with the water just starting to boil versus...
Wait, what?
You've never heard of that? It's the idea that, like, people get accustomed to change as long as it comes slowly. Like a frog can stay in a pot. You heat up the water. If you throw a pot into boiling water, it'll jump back out. If you heat the frog up in boiling water, the frog doesn't jump out or something. I have no idea if it's actually true. It's just a saying. But it makes sense because, like you said, if Bitcoin goes down tomorrow, one, it's just the media bias against it. But two, it's that it happened in a day. The dollar takes, like we say, 40 years. Right. Which, as to why people are either just, I feel like most people are kind of ignorant about it in the sense that it's just not really thought of. People just go, well, that's just what happens. Inflation happens. That's all I remember. Like, no one ever taught me what it was in high school or in any kind of, like, it was, I think I remember asking my parents when I was really young, and my mom was like, oh, it just happens. I'm like, why does stuff get more expensive?
Right.
But that's the big difference. And that's like why anything, like you said, all of your money, you save all this money, and then every single year it's depleting, which is then kind of what people make the argument that this is what pushes people into something where instead of saving your money, you're just trying to spend it because...
Oh, yeah.
If you're the interest rates suck, so there's no point keeping them in the bank. Ooh, I want to keep it in the year for another like 35 cents on something.
Right. That is what I was reminded of Zimbabwe. No, is it? No.
Yeah, it's Zimbabwe.
Well,
I have
yeah,
the dollars
Zimbabwe
right next to me.
Yeah, Zimbabwe had gigantic inflation, but also the more modern example of the same thing is Venezuela. They have hundreds of percent inflation per year. I forget, it's like 400 or something, and it's always going up, so maybe it's way more. But I remember hearing that people there would just buy cars and buy washing machines because it was better than having whatever Venezuelan, what are they called? The strong bolivar. There you go. So, and that got me thinking, well then, does that apply here in the U.S.? I mean, should I be buying a car instead of just keeping money in my bank account? And that's not really true because a car loses value the second you drive it off the lot. It loses probably like 30% of its value just because of it's just kind of a mentality thing. It's all of a sudden a used car and it's not worth as much. And so that's not quite true. You wouldn't want to buy cars and washing machines, but it almost certainly would be worthwhile to switch out of the dollar and into something that's considered relatively stable long term, like silver or gold or Bitcoin's not considered stable, but it's considered I would consider it possibly a really good investment. I hope you know that, and that's why I have some Bitcoin. But anyway, so what I would take away from that is, okay, maybe I don't need to just buy random junk. I don't need to just buy a washing machine and a new phone. But yeah, I should try to get my money out of the dollar and into some kind of even a moderate investment. Even if I could just make 1% to 2% per year. Well, actually, even that's a little low because the inflation rate is more than that. So, but anyway, so get it into something other than the dollar, which is just going to lose value. But then you wonder, and I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that the goal? Are we falling into their trap? Are we stimulating the economy falsely if we spend our dollars and put it into the stock market or something? Is that a risk? Are we falling into their trap if we do that?
I'm going to try to talk and see if I can, if there's not another train that comes, but apparently the economy around here is stimulated with a lot of just graffiti or something. I don't really know. Like I said, some people do make that argument that there is a mentality that's wanted, is that it's to push it into like a consumerist thing. Like I said before, I don't think enough people are aware of it. Mostly I think that people would argue that it's like a subliminal thing, I guess, like where people kind of in the back of your head, you're not always like, oh, well, my money's going down and down and down, but it's like, well, I might as well spend it because it's not doing anything in the bank. Versus
right.
Back a couple generations where it was a better idea to save the money. And it's cliche, but my grandfather was I can save this 2-liter Coke bottle to help me make homemade wine. He made homemade, or like the tubes, or like he'd save pill bottles because you need that for like filtering out the bubbles from the wine. It was just like, dude, why don't you buy something that's just real? But they don't, and that's the ton that came from. So
yeah, oh yeah, my grandfather was the exact same way. Like I said, he would save paper towels because he did live through the Great Depression. So I mean,
yeah, it's a decline in the economy. Just like it's people argue that then there's like a decline. Well, I don't know. This could have like some correlation. It's like when the countries kind of went off the world or the gold standard. Most of the ones in Europe did. Then they had World War I, where they just spent a lot of money. And now we're like that now because our money, there's just like, don't worry about it anymore. Everybody has like how many $1,000 in debt and credit and mortgages on their house and their car. So, does that have anything to do with what you asked before?
Well, no, it's
just in general, just about credit. And
yeah, I mean, that's definitely an important factor is the saving versus spending mentality. I mean, there is a big difference. And I guess what I would say in terms of, is it a waste to just spend money because it's better than keeping dollars? I guess the best I could come up with is that, listen, yes, it's not a good idea to just spend money. And like I said, you certainly shouldn't just waste it on things that instantly lose a ton of value, like electronics or a car or something. But it's not at all a mistake to move out of the dollar and into something that's just either relatively stable or something that you expect to grow pretty slowly.
Or just something tangible. Just like,
oh yeah,
like land, property, stuff like that. Or just, even if you're not, like, you don't have to be, if you're buying guns, people be like, oh yeah, he's just hoarding them for right, whenever they come to take your weapons. But guns, typically, as long as you keep them in good condition, they stay the same value or go up. So even just stuff like that. And
guns. Yeah. Guns are a good example. You're right. If anything, they're going to gain value.
Yeah, no, people want them. There's something that just doesn't depreciate. Even if you use it, as long as you clean it, people are like, it's fine. You said, gold, silver, Bitcoin.
Yeah, I would put gold and silver way above land, because land is so easy for the government to seize. They already tax you every year on it. But if they wanted to kick you off, or if things went to hell and military law kicked in, you got to run away. You cannot hang on to your land.
I wouldn't use that as an argument, because that happened with gold in the 40s.
No, well, it happened on paper, but if you knew what you were doing and if you were able, that's what I mean. You can't hide your land. You can't take it with you. But if you didn't want to comply with the gold...
If you buy land somewhere out, I would imagine that land is probably one of the most stable things.
I'm not even
in terms of value, yes. I'm saying, though, that you can't hang on to it if the government wants it.
Yeah, it's hard because it's public.
I mean, if that happens,
like that.
I don't think you're worrying about value anymore.
I think in that situation, gold and silver would be through the roof. And you could take it. You could run out of the country.
If there's
with them.
martial law, though, I mean, I guess if you can make it out of the country,
but
you're not going to do that with gold and silver in an airport these days,
you're
by
right.
boat probably.
You're right, and
you
so
that have enough to tip people.
That brings us to Bitcoin. So get Bitcoin
or a lot of guns, and a lot of mercenaries.
Yeah, so you can fight your way through the border,
exactly.
And a helicopter, an Apache.
Buy a tank. An amphibious thing.
So anyway, that's what I would say is it sounds absurd, because you're right, Tim. The classic mentality, the classic advice is save your money, save your money, save your money. But really, if there's even something that's slightly stable, it's going to be way better to have than dollars. And at least that would be my argument. There's no proof of that. I can't tell the future. Maybe somebody will come in there and turn around inflation. But as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be way, way, way better to have something tangible, or Bitcoin, something that's going to deflate as opposed to inflate. So that's my thought. I don't know, John, anything else from you? I thought you said you had an interesting point to make about this.
Well, so my thing...
everything else you said.
Well, no, I mean...
Yeah, your last point was not interesting at all.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I think the land thing is... I just really think land is awesome. I don't know why.
You can just look out and just own something.
Yeah, we've talked about farming and stuff in the past.
That's the thing, though, Tim. You don't own it. The government.
I know that.
I'm not trying to get into this argument. I'm just saying that land is freaking cool.
Okay, all right.
You just go out and it will never not be worth something. Even people will pay for land just so that they can have a place where other people aren't allowed to disturb them. That's at the bare minimum. But then above that, you can also mine resources or grow crops or raise animals.
Oh yeah.
It has. Land is just amazing.
Again, I'm not meaning as a shit hits the fan thing where they come and they're just taking your land to just keep troops on. But even now, having land, having a building that you can rent out, something you can do with your money that then has a moderately passive income, if you can pay other people to keep it up. Being
a landlord might not be quite as passive as some people think, but I agree if you could do it.
It doesn't have to be if you were a good landlord, you wouldn't be passive, because you need upkeep on your property. But if you own enough, that's how I think how you're going to start. That's how you can kind of secure your money that way. Now, if everything goes shit hits fan, no one's going to be like, yeah, I want to buy a house right now. They're just going to be burning them. But it might be better than keeping a bunch like $700,000 in the bank to buy like a shitty house or like something that you can kind of rent out for a little bit and then build up from that versus just letting it get interest.
Right. Well, and I agree with you, John. I even get that feeling even just in my apartment. Like, I don't own it, I lease it, and there's not really any land involved, but just being inside and having a space that is yours, that you are in charge of, that technically no one else is really allowed in, even the government.
No, it's still different though if you're renting something.
No, I agree. I said even though I'm renting it, you're right. There's a difference. I totally agree. All I'm saying is the idea of just having my own space is a pretty good feeling. And obviously you're right. It'd be way better if it was my own land that I was not renting and if there was dirt involved. But
what? Oh, okay.
Like if it was actual land instead of just a floor on an apartment complex.
Well, there you go. What
Daniel
do you want,
really likes dirt.
He just wants a huge dirt farm and then a big like Bitcoin farm right outside too.
Yeah.
What do you want? Do you want like a big like farmland or?
Did you seriously just ask me that question?
Yeah, I don't know what you like.
Tim,
Did you? No,
like,
no, I know.
You're triggering him right now.
That's what I do
Daniel's
now.
triggered
That's what I do
by
nowadays.
farms.
You want me to
What
milk?
word? You just said the F word around me.
Tim, you want me to milk cows on that big plastic
I
leg?
love that. That beef I got from you guys was so fucking good. It's so good.
Yeah,
but anyway,
we
and the
got
honey.
it.
I need more of the honey. But
That's what you should
was I going
invest
with
in,
this?
honey. That stuff never goes bad, right?
no,
It's
it's so
true.
good. I still have stuff. It's like you just mix that with like peanut butter. Oh my god. Anyway,
Yeah, that's actually true. One of my favorite meals. So easy. Peanut butter and honey sandwich.
no, you take the farm and then just not use it and just piss your parents off. You would just like, I just have this just to look around. I just killed all the grass around. You just like hire me to come out. I'll weed kill it for like $10,000. We'll just nuke the entire thing around it, and you'll be good.
Just pour bleach over the whole thing.
Oh, man.
Just get them to crop dust your house.
Anyways, the land wasn't actually the thing I was going to talk about.
All right.
The thing that I had would have been more appropriate a while ago, but it just, you were talking, I didn't stop you or anything.
Okay, all right.
And it's mostly anecdotal stuff. And this could maybe be a good way to close out even, I guess.
All right.
Depending on how long this takes. But just going back to the idea of when you initially started thinking about this and you were doing the calculations and you were like, yeah, I mean, everybody talks about inflation, but how much does it actually affect your life?
Right.
I've had several moments where I like came to the same kind of realization that it actually does make a pretty big difference. Both of them involving food. So
Right.
the first time was, I mean, so Subway, they have their sandwiches divided by different price categories. There's like 3 different price points, I think, or something like that. But they used to have all those advertisements that were $5 footlongs.
Yeah,
and it was
yeah.
like they had that for a couple years. And then I remember one day I just walked into Subway and all the prices were different. And the lowest price category was now like $6. And it was a $6
Well,
footlong.
It was
They
probably
don't-
like $5.29 or something.
No, it's actually $6.
All right.
Because before it was $5 plus tax, whatever. So like $5.35. But now you go in and it's like $6.42.
Oh, wow, dang.
But so the way it first started is that they had the $6 price point, but then every month they would have a featured $5 footlong. And it was just one sandwich. Instead of having a whole category with like 3 or 4 sandwiches, it was just one, and it would change every month. And it would be something from the $6 category. But now they don't even do that. It's just like $6, $7.25.
Right.
Whatever the different, I don't remember.
I haven't really gone to Subway in a long. I kind of hate Subway now.
Yeah, I actually used to go a lot.
The last time I went, it was so shitty.
Yeah, I used to go a lot, and now it kind of makes me sick. There's like there's a Subway particle that's just like in everything that they make. Everything there has this certain taste. There's some Subway particle that's just permeates everything.
Isn't it? It's Jared and his like kitty porn or something. It got infected in all the food, right?
It's a subconscious thing.
But anyways, Subway, I used to love it. I'm kind of grossed out by it now. I go to Jimmy John's though. Jimmy John's is amazing, dude.
At night they'll give you free bread too, or at least they used to.
Dude, Jimmy John's is so freaking good.
Yeah,
it's
I'd
not
go
that
there and then
expensive
steal
either.
Tuna shit from my work, and then have this like big, huge sandwich. Oh, it was so good. Their bread is so good.
Billy Club. Yeah, their bread is. I think that's the Subway particle. It's in the bread. At least that's what my mom says, and I think she's on the right track.
I've never had Jimmy John's, so I don't know, but I did run into the inflation idea there with food, because I worked fast food for a while. I worked at Chick-fil-A, and we had the original chicken sandwich, and when I first started, it was like $3.12, and it was actually like every few months it would go up. It was like $3.12, and then it was like $3.14. And then, well, no, it went up more than that. It was like $3.12 and then $3.16 and then $3.22. I don't know, but it would be a problem because, you eventually you would start to memorize those numbers, because every once in a while someone would order just a chicken sandwich, and then the price would go up, and someone would order, and you're like, oh, that's $3.12, and you're like, oh crap, no, it's not. But anyway, so yeah. That it happens.
So This is another anecdote, and it's basically the exact same story, but there's some other stuff that happened at the end.
All right.
So, back in college, there was this pizza place. Back in college, like it was so long ago, when it really wasn't. Anyways, there was this pizza place called Antunes, and maybe some people will be able to figure out where I went to college from that. But anyways, Antunes had $5 large pizzas every day, all day. And they weren't the best pizzas, but they were $5 for a large pizza, which means that Antunes got a lot of business.
Yeah.
But especially at 2 o'clock in the morning from drunk people, because they were also open all night, or I don't know all night, but they were open really late. But anyways, Antunes had the $5 pizzas, and last year it went up to $6. And I remember talking to.
Protest time.
Yeah, I remember talking to people about that, and they were like, no, it's $5. Antunes is always $5 large. So I was like, dude, they raised their prices this year. It happened like a month ago. I'm telling you. And it did happen. It was true. I was right. I wasn't. Sometimes I question whether or not my memories are correct or not, like whether I just hallucinated something. But I was right about
makes them up.
No, anyways. So then, with these people that I told that, we started talking about inflation. I was like, I basically told them exactly what we're saying right now, and I had already come to this realization because of Subway, so I felt like I could bestow my wisdom upon them. And I was like, yeah, you guys know about inflation. Everybody knows that inflation happens. Guess what? It actually affects your lives. And they were like,
yeah, they may have.
I guess you're right, but I didn't think it was like noticeable. And I'm like, well, it is. And then
it's more expensive.
Yeah, so after that,
I remember when bread was way cheaper.
Yeah,
I for whatever reason I remember like stuff like in gas. Like when we were younger.
Well, gas is a different thing because it's cheaper than it was 2 years
ago.
Like
everything fucks with gas.
Yeah, but no, you're right. And like milk is another one that has changed a lot. But that's one of those things where people will talk about stuff getting more expensive, and I'm like, it's not that it got more expensive; it's that your dollar is worth less. And they're like,
right.
Are you sure about that? And I'm like, yes, you learned about this in school, man. You know about inflation. Why do you not believe that it happens? Yeah. But anyways, so I was having this conversation with these people, and we decided to look it up, and we looked at averages over the years, and it is, in the U.S., it's averaged...
Like 3%?
Yeah, for like 20 years or something like that. It's been 3% per year, and that's fairly significant.
Yeah,
that's definitely noticeable. It's not like hyperinflation in Zimbabwe or whatever, but it's noticeable. 3% is totally noticeable.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that means every $5 to $6 is 20%. So every 6 years, your pizza's gonna get $1 expensiver.
Yeah, and I mean those $5 footlongs. I wouldn't be surprised if you went back and looked at when it started and when it stopped, and it was 5 years or 6 years or whatever.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so it's crazy because, like I said, that's why I wanted. Even though I hesitated, I still figured it would be good to bring this up because even I didn't realize how serious it was. And I know about inflation. I grew up in a conservative household, and I love Bitcoin, so I've always known about inflation, and I've always hated it. But even I didn't realize just how much it would affect you over the course of your work life, how much it would diminish your savings. And I mean, there is the argument that your wages will go up too. And that's true. I mean, you do get wages you do get raises over your career, usually for most people. But that's still normally when you're planning for retirement, you factor that in. So if I plan to save $2 million by retirement, that's what I plan to save. It doesn't matter what my raises are. By the time I'm 65, I'm going to try to have $2 million. So, and by that time, it's going to only buy as much as 500 grand will right now. And that's the thing with this calculator. This calculator is going from 1976 to 2016. I mean, that's what I plugged in. But the thing is, in 1976, nobody would have cared. Nobody would have tried to save $2 million. That would have been an outrageous amount in 1976. They would have tried to save 500,000, right? I mean, that's the equivalent in today's dollars. They would have tried to save $500,000, which means they would have gotten here today and they would have had $500,000 and tried to retire. And it's like, ah, crap. Now I have to live on whatever. What's 500,000 divided by 20 years of retirement? I'm going to figure this out real quick. That's 25 grand a year. Yeah. So that's what would have happened. You know, you get to retirement in 2016, you've saved $500,000, which you thought was great, and now you have to live for 20 years on 25 grand a year. So anyway, it's real. You're right. I think we covered it. Anything else you guys want to hit? Any response to that last rant there?
Well, I mean, I would say that I think people do factor it in to some extent, maybe not enough. Maybe they don't realize that in 76 everything was worth a quarter more.
Right. Yeah,
but
I mean,
I think
I would
people
say,
do factor it in a little bit. I think
yeah. You might say, like, oh, well, just to be safe, I'll double the amount that I want to save. So instead of saving $2 million, I'll save $4 million. But double is not enough. You need to, because you're going to lose 75%, not 50%. So, I mean, and doubling the amount you want to save is a huge game changer. I mean, that's going to change your entire lifestyle if you're saving twice as much as you originally planned or something. So yeah, so even then, it's going to affect you. Even if you do factor it in, it's going to be a huge effect on your day-to-day life. So
yeah.
All right, well then I guess that brings us to advice of the day, and whoever goes first is going to get the easy one. So I guess I'll let you fight for it. What is it, guys? What did we learn?
Put your money into a bunch of Bitcoin-funded weed farms, because whenever the apocalypse happens, everyone's just going to want to get high all the time and shoot people. So put your money there and then buy lots of gold bars just so you can have gold bars, and if anyone comes to your house, you can just be, all right, here's a gold bar, you can go fuck off.
Tim, I don't know about weed farms.
And AK-47s.
As it becomes more legal, the value of weed should actually drop.
Yeah, it's going to go
right?
like way down.
Yeah.
What are they never going to make?
Yeah, but the value of the farm itself will always be pretty good.
True.
You got to get that land, man.
Yeah, go get that land.
Got to get that land.
Get that land. You just,
dude, I want to start like doing raps about land and stuff like that. Like farmers rapping.
Oh, dude, there's a country dude that made it's a rap just about every single day he puts on his boots and goes down to work. I forget what his name is, but it's kind of shitty.
Yeah, well, this would be, I mean, it's a similar thing. You grow up in the hard life out in the boonies. The man gets you down. People disrespect you. Nobody respects poor white folks, you know.
No, yeah, I mean, they get
people,
shot too.
People feel bad for poor black folks, but people don't feel bad for poor white folks out in the boonies.
Is that your advice? Feel bad for Hicks?
Feel bad for the people in the Appalachians.
Actually, I do think that would help.
Actually,
legitimately, I do think that would help. But
call me crazy, but I actually have a certain level. I might have mentioned this on the show before, but I actually have a pretty significant level of respect for people who most people just assume like, oh, you live in the middle of nowhere near a city, and you know, you might work on a farm or construction or something, or you own a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and or even worse, you work the register at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. And all you live for is to make enough money to pay for your shack and buy some cigarettes or something. I have a certain level of respect for those people. I mean, it depends on their attitude, but if you are able to be content just working, 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and relaxing with a cigarette or just going home and relaxing, watching some TV. I know, like, it depends on your attitude. Maybe you'll sink into depression because of that, and obviously that's not great. But if you're content with that, I have some serious respect for you. I wish I could live simpler and not be so concerned about saving $2 million.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Did you hear how he
Tim, shut
it
up,
before?
John.
There's that proverb or something it's something about wisdom brings what is it? It's something like one who acquires much wisdom will also acquire much sorrow or something like that. Like the simpler that your life can be, sometimes the better. And you can like feel bad for those people or look down on them or think that they're missing out on something, and I totally agree with you. I think I don't know, this is cheesy, but you can't take away the human spirit element, I guess.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
There's something noble about it.
Yeah, it's true. Like when if I'm driving down the road and far from the city, and I see somebody in a beat up pickup truck with, a shaggy beard and hair and stuff. I mean, you don't know what they live for or what they do day to day or what they're building with their lives. It might be super simple. It might just be serving people at the gas station, but if they're happy, that's awesome. So, but despite all of that, I'm still going to make my advice about getting filthy rich.
Yeah.
I'm going to...
Did you hear how he described your job before? Like you own a gas station, or worse, you're a cashier. So, yeah, your advice is, get rich, but I don't think you... I understand where you're coming from saying that you have some kind of like admiration for them, but
you're selfish and you want them to serve society more and do something for you, right?
Well,
you want them to be productive.
You do. That's what you do. You want them to serve your gas, which is fine. You want to think that they enjoy this. I mean, and maybe they do, but you're automatically gonna think like, oh yeah, I'm sure they just love their job. Like, it's probably just, like, great, like, being them. It's so simple and everything. But, like, everybody's gonna make whatever part of their life out to be this big, huge thing inside their own head, at least. I mean, maybe they don't show it, or don't show it as much, but it comes out in different things. That's why people like that end up getting so fucking deranged and pissed off about stuff that doesn't, like, they have, like, certain issues that just set them off, and they just, I don't care. I hate anyone else who doesn't think this way. And it's all kinds of different stuff, but it seems like everybody has that one thing. This has nothing to do with what you were saying.
This is getting way too dark.
It's not dark. It's just, I think it's kind of naive to be like, I admire them, or I, like, good for them if they're happy. Like, if they're happy like that, I mean, whatever, but it seems kind of weird to me to admire it, because then you're in a higher position to them, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's just good for them. That's like, if you're happy doing that and not getting above me.
I get what you're saying. It's like condescending.
Yeah, that's how more I take it, because I'm trying to defend our audience that definitely comes from that demographic. I'm sure they...
Are you saying only losers listen to us, Tim?
I think you have a point, Tim. I maybe am not thinking of people who are like, I don't know. I think you can't say that there's nobody like that is actually just satisfied with their lives. And I think it depends on the areas, but yeah, there's certain areas where it seems more like people just were never given opportunity to escape.
Yeah, or they just, like, people get caught up in something, and then they keep on just, like, trying to go with that, or they get stuck behind something. They're like, well, I just did this, so I have to do this. And then people get stuck with things, so...
I mean, we worked with people like that at the factory.
Yeah, that's... Like...
But I mean, were people at the factory who weren't... They just seemed like all right with how things were. I wouldn't say that was the majority of people there, but there were people there that I think were just like living their lives.
Yeah. I mean, who was the dude who like walked around with like floppy hair? He was okay with his life like that. He drove like the shittiest truck.
that's the exact truck that Daniel was talking about.
And he would just like, dude, I've been down like McKees Rocks the other day.
He was like, hey man. He always said that.
How you doing,
hey man.
Well, first of all, before I get to my advice, I just want to remind people that this is how hard it is to try to work with Tim. This whole frickin' show, he's been talking over us, and, you know, as soon as I come up with a point, I start to get it out, and then Tim, it's this and this and this. And then he'll talk for like 10 seconds, and then all of a sudden he'll just be like, wait, I'm not making any sense. Does this have anything to do with that? And then he'll freeze, and he'll say, and he'll skip. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there. Tim will talk over you when he's not supposed to.
Advice of the week: never start a podcast with Tim.
Exactly. That's not my advice of the week. That's just a bit of advice that I want to get out there.
That's my advice of the week.
All right, there you go.
Actually, my real advice is buy land, and pray that before martial law that there's nuclear holocaust, and then you can start over and just live off the land by yourself. Yeah, and clean up and slowly rebuild society. And next time, maybe it won't be as crappy.
Are you going to have animals before or after? Like, so are you going to try to get, like, some double-headed cows or something like that? And, like, breed those with the regular cows you keep inside?
Tim, you're done, all right? I'm serious.
I had a nice depth to this podcast you don't bring with your
This is what I mean. I just said you're done, and then he starts to go off on something. And then if I actually stopped and let him talk, though, he would all of a sudden start stumbling.
Wait. I'm done now. You weren't going anywhere.
All right. My advice, the actual advice I want to give, is about getting filthy rich, which I was trying to say like 5 minutes ago, and I got interrupted. But I'm going to go all the way back to Tim's point about passive income, whether it's being a landlord or owning a business, or owning a website. That's something I'm pretty proud about. You know, we do have a little bit of income from the website, and that's cool. It's definitely not enough to live on or retire on, but it's something that's there. And that's what I would say is, you know, then you don't have to worry as much about inflation, because you're going to have you're not going to be relying on your savings. You're going to be relying on your income. And if prices go up, your income should also increase likewise. I mean, obviously there's a million different variables, but anyway, that's what I would say is passive income is where it's at, or at least relatively passive. So that's a good way to probably stave off the inflation, the black box of inflation. So I think I'm ready to call it. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, I'm good. Except you just used my advice from earlier in the show as your end show advice.
I know. There's got to be some reason that we keep you around, and I guess once in a while you do have a good idea. So.
This is even worse. Don't do this.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for being here. And come back next Thursday. I am back on schedule for the most part after being a little late for a few weeks. Last week's episode did go out on Thursday, and this one should as well. So thank you for coming back every Thursday and listening to Tim's rambling and stumbling and whatever.
I'm just trying to get my ideas out.
Whatever. My golden voice, smooth, buttery. Thanks for that too. All of the music from today's show was from John Stewart. So thank you for that, John. Take a bow, please.
Stewart.
I refuse.
I guess you can't really take a bow on the radio. All right, guys. We'll see you next Thursday. Thank you so much. Peace.
Bye-bye.